is changing very drastically, and now I'm able to see it. That is because a cyber revolution is taking root, one that is increasingly impacting each and every one of us. Hello, my name is Abhiram Tadepalli, and until a few months ago, I was oblivious to the changes in the landscape of cybersecurity. However, through my original work, final product, and research throughout ISM, I have been able to see the past, present, and future of the industry. In fact, the video that you just saw was actually a trailer for my final product, and it showcases the massive amount of growth I had in the field. Let's start at the beginning. Cybersecurity is a field that has tremendous potential, and it also impacts each and every one of us. At its most basic level, cybersecurity means defending against threats and exploits and vulnerabilities. It impacts computers, systems, networks, and other devices from all types of unauthorized access or attacks. This is what drew me to the industry, because cyber attacks have a large attack surface. This means that there are many different types of attacks that can happen. For example, I learned about a very damaging attack on Microsoft's Exchange server system, a platform used by millions of people around the world. The vastness of technology means that these chinks in its armor can never be fully eliminated, but they can be helped. This provides me the amazing opportunity to be the change that I wish to see in the world. When I started my journey into ISM, I did preliminary research that looked at the projections for cybersecurity and the field's outlook. I saw an unparalleled potential for growth in the industry. Analysts say that cybersecurity industry is expected to grow 31% over the next decade, because cyber attacks are only becoming more common and more harmful. Mainly, an increase in artificial intelligence and cyber warfare capabilities leads to higher potency for attacks. However, the COVID-19 pandemic hasn't helped either. During the lockdown, many organizations had to rapidly adapt to an online environment. This had opened the door to more and more cyber abuse. The nature of lockdown last year made it hard for organizations to securely transition from an in-person environment to a remote and cloud environment. This rapid transition means that certain precautions were not taken. This is why the time frame for my original work project, which I did last semester, focused on 2020 and 2021. But we'll discuss that a bit later. Let's first talk about the beginning of my ISM process. So after I did the preliminary research that looked at the field's outlooks, I interviewed many people in the cybersecurity profession, from professors to industry experts. Of these people, one person I talked to was Ms. Roshni Sapru, who is a senior security analyst at Enverus. Her jobs over the years consisted of analyzing past threats and responding to her real-time incidents. My conversation with her opened my eyes to the full scope of cybersecurity, because I used to think that the field was always about the present threat, whereas in reality it's about analyzing the past to find current trends that can help predict and prevent future threats. My conversation with her opened my eyes to that full scope, and I look to apply that knowledge in my final product and original work research. As I was in the process of locking down my original work idea, Ms. Sapru reached out to me and asked if she could be my mentor. And I readily accepted, because she really did help me with my original work, and she was an amazing person to interview. During our initial interview, I mentioned that ISM had a mentorship component, and she was very enthusiastic about it. So after I accepted, our mentor sessions were underway. Ms. Sapru was very helpful not only for my career goals in cybersecurity, but also for ISM, because she taught me a lot of content relevant to the field and that eventually became my original work. In our first set of meetings, we discussed the foundational aspect of the industry, like the National Institute of Standards and Technology's Incident Response Framework. I was also introduced to CVEs, but more on that later. As I learned more and more about the cyber defense and response categories, I was intrigued about the other side of cybersecurity, cyber offense. Ms. Sapru was very adaptable, and she structured a lesson plan around this topic. I learned about the cyber kill chain framework, which describes common trends that most cyber attacks follow. She also described the various types of hackers, like black hat hackers, who are malicious, white hat hackers, who are considered ethical hackers because they're hired by companies to poke holes in defenses, and gray hat hackers, who are generally ambiguous. So malicious hackers, the black hat hackers, can have various motives. Sometimes mass phishing scams can be started by people with very little knowledge of technology and coding, as long as they have a working script, which anyone can find on the internet. From then, the stakes only get higher with hackers who have the technical knowledge and a purpose, often a political purpose. I was also intrigued by state-sponsored hackers, which are groups of hackers that are told by governments to attack another country or another group. The scariest form of attack by far are cyber terrorists, because while we don't see this group as often, they have been cropping up, and when they do succeed, they target critical infrastructure systems like water purification and oil pipelines in order to create mass chaos. The discussion of hacker motivations actually played a big part in my original work project. My mentor was very helpful in my search for the project idea, and she adapted the meetings to help me brainstorm for the original work, and also guided me through the hurdles of the original work project. So I'm very thankful for her support. Now let's tie everything together and talk about my original work. So far my research in ISM suggested that companies are facing an increasing amount of cyber attacks, and the future of the industry is clearly geared towards combating the exploitation of weak system infrastructure. But I wanted to find out what attacks plague companies today, and how those attacks exploit companies' systems. So I created a website that displays the various cyber attacks and vulnerabilities over the past year. This project consisted of a dissection of each cyber attack using the cyber kill chain framework, and then an analysis of companies' individual responses to the incidents, followed by a comparison of the NIST guidelines for incident response. So over the course of the 2 months, I dedicated more than 20 hours towards my original work project, whether that be planning, acquiring resources, or creating the website itself. During the planning stage, I divided my project into 2 parts: cyber incidents and vulnerabilities. Then I gathered my materials. So I collected articles, statements, and expert testimonials about the chosen breaches and the chosen vulnerabilities. I obtained these through online databases, company records, in-depth reports, and news articles. To analyze the incidents, I worked towards a proficient understanding of the cyber kill chain framework, which I showed before, and the NIST incident response cycle, which is on the cyber defense side. For the second part of my project, I found very recent CVEs, vulnerabilities, through this MITRE CVE database. And the ones I chose had enough substance for me to explore and dissect, and also give a write-up on. Finally, I used the Wix website editor to present my findings in a professional and readable way. So once I collected the list of incidents, my first order of business was to analyze the cyber attacks themselves. So the trove of publicly available data that I collected really helped me, because I was able to dig through all of the resources I had and see specifically how the attack was formed, and who the attackers were, how the attack exploited the system, and things like that. What was also helpful was the cyber kill chain framework that I used to break down the attacks, and I was able to categorize each attack based on its stage along the cyber kill chain framework. After dissecting the attack, it was only natural that I record the response, the company's response to the incident. So I did this by using the cyclical NIST incident response cycle, the 5-step cycle, to divide the response into easy to manage steps to see exactly how companies did their incident response. After that, I rated the company's success in mitigating their responses to the threat, and also suggested a couple of changes that the companies could have made after each incident. So I'll walk you through all of that in my website. But before that, on the vulnerability side of things, I used the open source information from the databases that I found and the NIST NBD platform to compile details about each exploit. I first read some background information about each exploit, and then I verified the designated type of the CVE, so its severity, and also collected information like that. And then using the description and vulnerability score provided, I evaluated the exploit and its implication for all the other cyber attacks that I had studied. Finally, I designed the website, and that showcased all the various cyber attacks and vulnerabilities that I had studied. This is that website, and it's the outcome of my original work. It compiles all the information I collected and all of my research and all of my conclusions that I generated. The homepage features the title and also has 3 buttons that allow people to navigate through to the incidents page, the vulnerabilities page, and if they want to find out more about what an original work project is and what I wanted to do, they can click on the middle button. The incident page has a brief overview of the 4 incidents at the top. So I chose the T-Mobile breach from August of last year, the CNA financial breach, the Microsoft Exchange server attack, and the Colonial Pipeline attack, which I'm sure all of you have heard of. For each incident, I also went over the NIST framework and the MITRE CVE attack framework that categorize the attacks. And then I broke down each attack. So first I described what exactly happened. I followed that with a dissection of the cyber attack so that people would understand how that happened. And then after that, I analyzed the response. So I was able to navigate through the cyber offense and the cyber defense categories. Then at the bottom, I proposed solutions to the problems described above after a rating of the company's awareness and their response. The vulnerability page was similar in structure, but it also went more in depth about each individual exploit. So those were my 4 that I chose. And then, for example, for the Google Chrome exploit, I described what the exploit was based on the official description from the CVE page. I also had the type of attack so that people would understand the scope of the attack. Next to those were the scores that determine the severity of the cyber attack, the implication, so the effect, what it was able to do, what it was not able to do, and what it told us about the infrastructures that were in place. And finally, at the bottom, I had a status to update people about the status of the exploit, so whether it was patched or if it was still operational, or if it was a non-issue. Now, I just wanted to say I was surprised by my ability to design and complete such a modern and content-filled website within the allocated time. The simple and easy to navigate design exceeded my expectations for this project. That wasn't my focus, and I still felt that I did a really good job. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity I had to do this project through ISM. My website demonstrates both my understanding of complex industry and real-world incidents, and also my passion for cybersecurity. Now, at the end of this process, I have a firmer understanding of common cyber attacks and vectors, vulnerabilities on systems, and the industry standard for incident response. So through my original work, I hope to gain a deeper understanding of system infrastructure and of cybersecurity. And I did do that because I found numerous solutions to simple problems within companies and infrastructures that were the root causes for these attacks. The project was also designed to challenge me and my understanding of cybersecurity, and so to that extent, it was indeed successful and it was useful. I was tested to the limit by my verbiage, by the verbiage used in the cybersecurity briefings, but that just motivated me to learn all of that information and learn the keywords and the background necessary to be a cybersecurity professional. I structured the project in a way that was perfect for facilitating the foundations of cybersecurity because this was my first step into the world of cybersecurity. And I was able to navigate through both sides of the security conundrum, cyber attack and cyber defense. And it also serves as an amazing platform for me to explore and build a career out of because the project provides many avenues to delve deeper into. Beyond myself, this original work project is a great informational resource for anyone that wants to learn more about cybersecurity or wants to approach the field like I did. So after all of this, I wanted to talk again about my mentor, Ms. Roshni Sapru, because I can't overstate the tremendous amount of help she's been this year. As I said earlier, I first met my mentor during the interview stage of ISM, and while I was working on finalizing my original work idea, I decided to reach out to her and ask for her suggestions, and she gave me a perfect suggestion that later became this original work website. She also asked me if she could be my mentor, and I gladly accepted, and it's been an amazing couple of months learning from her. We met up again in November for our first mentor meeting, and from then on we would meet 2 to 3 times a month. during those mentor meetings, I would ask any questions I had about cybersecurity, and after she answered them, she would take me through a content-filled lecture that would teach me the various different concepts within cybersecurity, and I learned a lot of basics of cybersecurity, and I was able to also learn some advanced concepts as well. So, as I said before, we covered foundational structures and frameworks like the NIST incident response cycle and the MITRE cyber attack framework. Then we moved on to cyber offense and defense, and for each cyber attack that we discussed, we also walked through the incident response necessary to counter that cyber attack. And in that process, I familiarized myself with tools that security specialists use. After I finished my original work project, I moved on to the middle ground between cyber offense and defense. Things like critical infrastructure, cloud security, Internet of Things, and governance. This also tied well into the future of cybersecurity that my mentor and I discussed. With the development of technologies like artificial intelligence and the increased frequency of state-sponsored and militia-sponsored cyber attacks, the field is ripe for newcomers like me. Combine that with the recent mass migrations to the cloud environment and the need to upgrade old legacy systems to newer systems, and all signs point towards a bright future for me in the cybersecurity industry. As we got closer to the start of my ISM final project preparations, we delved into the interactions between cyber specialists and the corporate world. So we discussed misalignments between the development team and cybersecurity teams, and also the misalignments between the corporate business owners and the cybersecurity specialists. What I learned is that cybersecurity is normally an afterthought in any sort of technological product, which makes it really hard for cybersecurity specialists to do their work. This one key point spurred my final project idea because I wanted to attack the lack of awareness among the general public of cybersecurity. So let's talk about that, my final product. I wanted to continue the work that I had done in my original work last semester, and I wanted to showcase my real passion for cybersecurity and the growth of my knowledge. So the next obvious step was to apply the skills that I had gained last semester. That is what I wanted to achieve with my final product this year in ISM, and to that end, I challenged myself to create a project that displayed the continued growth in my skills, drive, and passion for cybersecurity. The project I chose was challenging in nature, so I had to use my drive and passion for cybersecurity to follow through on my goals. And finally, as I expected, this experience formed a strong foundation for my cybersecurity endeavors in the coming years, whether it be on the offensive or defensive side. With these criteria and insights of my mentors, I formulated the perfect project that would balance the offensive and defensive sides of cybersecurity. I ultimately simulated a real phishing email attack on a system and responded to that attack using the NIST incident response guidelines. This is the email that I made, and it's, as you can see, a chase phishing email. So in the process, I learned the industry standard for cyber response protocols firsthand because I actually took part in those responses, and I also developed fast incident response skills based on the NIST guidelines. By April, I had a project consisting of this phishing email, the attachment payload that I developed on my own, and the response measures in place to counter that attack. I provided a detailed description of the nature of the cyber attack, and I made my reaction measures public in this video. It's a short film, is what I called it, because it's 10 minutes long, but it showcases everything from the inception of my cyber attack to the incident response and also the lessons learned portion. After that, I made a pamphlet for the average internet user or passerby to view, and it showcased how to counter a phishing email specifically, and in general, a cyber attack threat. So I based it on the NIST incident response framework, which is in 5 parts, and it's cyclical in nature to always promote growth. The high-stakes nature of the simulation I partook in, and my desire for authentic learning through the NIST incident response cycle made my adherence to the methodology of this project very important. I was dedicated to the project and I spent more than 30 hours over the past 3 months on it. So initially my plan was simple. I would create a phishing email, attach the payload, send it, and then I would just do some simple incident response on the target device. But as I developed my project further, I realized that I needed to elaborate on my initial plan. So let's break it down. I had to first create a template for the phishing email through Gmail. Then I had to generate a malicious payload. To do this, I utilize the Kali Linux operating system, and within that I use a tool called MSF Venom, which is a cyber attack tool. Next, I used a Windows PC as the target device that would receive the email payload, and then finally I made the video of the simulation and the pamphlet. The first order of business was to find a payload that I could keep my phishing email, that I could keep in my phishing email. I knew there was only a limited time and resources to run the simulation, so I chose to use Excel macros. A macro is a script that runs embedded within an Excel file, and it can do cool things if you're using it as intended, but if not, then you can open up your system to malicious threats. This Excel macros file I generated through the MSF Venom tool, which I already had experience using through a summer camp. And this was my final payload. After that, I developed the actual phishing email, which I designed after a real Chase Bank email that warns about unusual account activity. I chose this design because it was a common way to engage people in and force them to interact with the email. And I also really delved into the psychology of making a phishing email, and I tried to avoid many of the common loopholes like spelling errors and punctuation errors in the simulation. But it wasn't perfect, and you'll see why. The third step in my project was initially less physical, but it was still very important. After researching the initial incident response protocols in place, my mentor was very helpful and provided perfect examples of the incident response process in real life. So I modeled those processes and in my incident response playbook. This is something that my mentor suggested that I make because most security professionals do make this in a real world scenario. This served the dual purpose of being a physical, tangible evidence of my planning and thought process, and it also was a good document that I could refer back to time to time. From then on, my job was to follow the detailed 5-part NIST incident response protocol that required finding the file, deleting it, getting file hashes, changing passwords, and disconnecting from the internet. I could do all of this because of that incident response playbook where I justified my rationales and thought through the entire process, which made it very easy for me to see how each of the moving pieces fit together. I resolved the incident in a timely and efficient manner, and I was really, really happy with the way that I was able to complete my task. But I did see some areas where I could have improved, so I made a lessons learned section. Then the second to last thing I did was create the actual video that would showcase my incident response. I wanted to make the video as engaging as possible, so I refined the initial scenario where a customer gets a phishing email so that it would include more interaction between the customer and customer service. This way I was able to not just show the incident response, but I was able to tell it in words that people could read, and I was able to guide both the customer and the viewers through the process. This step took a long time because I sought perfection, or what I considered near perfection, which required me to take multiple drafts and multiple takes and make various different drafts. So I was satisfied with my video, and the final task I did was creating a tangible pamphlet that I could give to the general public. My pamphlet was intricately detailed so that it included each of the 5 steps of the NIST incident response cycle and how they applied to the phishing scenario. The purpose of this pamphlet was to educate people about both the dangers of common cyber attacks and the processes in place to combat these incidents. I put a lot of effort into this pamphlet because it was the ultimate product of my final project in ISM. So the outcome of my final product is a video simulation of the entire cyber attack, cyber defense process, and a pamphlet that summarizes my conclusions for the general audience. The video was carefully developed to include an engaging narrative that conveyed at times the gravity of the situation and at other times the ease at which I could solve the problem by following the detailed incident response guidelines. Overall, it looked to me as a polished product, and I hope you enjoy this brief excerpt.
downloaded a malicious attachment, right?
And?
And that malware could have infected every system on the shared network.
Really? Oh, that's bad.
What were you thinking clicking on that email? You can inspect the email for irregularities.
Like?
For example, look at the person that sent you the email. If it was from Chase, the domain would be @chase.com.
Well, I learned that I shouldn't trust emails unconditionally. I learned that I need more rigorous email filtering systems so that messages like these don't even end up in your inbox.
So, though my initial plan included a more technical development of the cyber attack, I was shocked by the depth of learning I was able to showcase with the final iteration of this project. Together with the video and pamphlet, it encompassed everything from the inception of the project to my post-simulation conclusions. What I was not surprised by was the amount of iterations that I had to go through to realize the final product. And in every project, I always adapt my initial plan, and this project benefited spectacularly from it. This pamphlet likewise was designed with the utmost care, and it was made to appeal to the general audience. I made it pretty vibrant, but its vibrancy didn't distract from the content within its pages. And it consisted of a fair mix of general facts, and it also had the incident response process specific to phishing emails. So through my final product, I hope to gain an understanding of system security and incident response. This project was designed to challenge me and my understanding of cybersecurity, both sides of the security conundrum, and an application of the industry-approved NIST standards. This project is the perfect platform for me to explore and build a great career out of in the future because it opens many pathways that I can go deeper into. This helped me first understand the key foundational concepts of the field through application, and then it adds to a wonderful portfolio of projects that I can present to future employers. Third, this project will be a springboard off of which I can pursue future cyber defense and offensive projects. Additionally, the findings I incorporated into my final product are useful for the vast majority of internet users. The pamphlet I made walks readers through the incident response process step by step and specifically addresses the phishing email simulation that I discussed. It is structured in a way that is easy to follow and includes the necessary graphics to make it engaging enough so that someone would want to pick it up and learn more. Overall, the video and pamphlet completely showcased my skills and passion for cybersecurity, which is exactly what I sought out of the independent study and mentorship class. This project will always be close to my heart because it is my first step into the field of cybersecurity. While the undertaking of this project seemed overwhelming, breaking it down into parts helped me see the beauty of my project and helped me accomplish my goals. What I hope you get from this presentation is a small look into the vast oceans of cybersecurity. I certainly am enthusiastic about what I can do in the field. Remember, our world is changing, and now you can do something too. Thank you.
I love your video. It was so fun. I wouldn't have thought to do that.
I'll get you. Next time.
You designed our logo together?
This is why we have to have a graphic artist to do everything. It's been invaluable. It's been amazing.
What'd you do your presentation on?
Like the
Yeah, just like the slides and everything.
PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
You know who loves PowerPoint? Winona.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
It's amazing.
So last year we had all these free offers to do clinics and things, and one of them was with Microsoft, and it was about all the things PowerPoint will do now because people kind of had dismissed it.
Yeah.
We've got kind of comfortable and hunkered down in Google here and Google Slides, and so, but she could take it and she could just go so fast. I could keep up with what they were trying us to do, but she was just amazing, and she just loves PowerPoint. So.
The transitions have improved a lot. So I try to make it like the keynote presentations that you see like tech conferences and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive. So, this will be something I will store away, so next year I can say, look, see what all you can do? I am going to start putting chairs up. I'm proud of you. You know, you really feel like you've grown a lot this year.
Yeah.
Because I really just like, you've always been very quiet, kind of shy, and never very outgoing.
Thank you.
But you're also that kind of person that waits. You have something important to say, and you say it. Not like somebody that's just filling up the void. But
Thank you.
it's just, yeah, it's been really cool. One of the fun things about teaching the sophomores that I have them come up.
So, do you all have any questions? Last one before we leave?
No, good presentation.
That was like incredible. Your visualizer is so good.
Thank you.